Okay, so I am live. Hello, everybody. I think I tried another one and I think it didn't work. So hopefully you got this one and you're seeing me. So, hi, if you do see me. And I wanted to say that I'm very excited. One of my announcements is that I am going to be in Chicago next weekend with Caleb Maupin, Peter Coffin, Garland Nixon. I mean, some amazing people. Oh, and I'm seeing people in the chats. Thank you so much for joining this. That makes so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Okay, so someone's seeing me, so that's awesome. So anyway, back to what I was saying. The Center for Political Innovation has invited me to speak. We're going to be talking a lot that day about imperialism. And Caleb Maupin coordinated this event through Center of Political Innovation. Please support them. Go to their website and give them a little bit because they've had to incur the cost of getting all these speakers, including myself, to Chicago and at the Hyatt. So we'll be at the Hyatt at 1:00. It's going to be fantastic. And this is a time when we really need to discuss all this. It's very important. So I'm really happy to have your support. And thank you. The other announcement I wanted to make is that I have a contributor to RT and other, other periodicals. His name is Bradley Blankenship, and I did not know too much about his work and just learned about it over the time I was contributing RT op-eds. But he has really does really fantastic op-eds himself, and is a good writer and journalist, and he's really going to be fun to see. So come tomorrow. It'll be live, 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time on, all the various channels and under the politics of survival. And luckily I have INN, who produces and engineers, and I'm part of the Indie News Network. So Indy and Reef really helped me out. And also they have their show coming right up, I think at 10 p.m. Eastern time. So I was trying to think the time, 7 p.m. Pacific time live. What did we miss? That show, how did we miss that? With Indy, and they'll be going over some of the major news. And there's some interesting things that happened this week, including the Alan McLeod piece about CIA operatives all over Google, which is no surprise. High tech seems to be filled with them, and we all know that. But I wanted to say that it's been a tough week for activists. This week there was an FBI raid, which I think Garland Nixon, if you want to check out his channel, he just did a piece on going over the details of that. And there's been some articles that have come up. But basically, this FBI raid went into a Black socialist group and went into their house in Florida, and even used flash grenades, which is, that's unconscionable, into people's houses that are unarmed. Imagine there's children and pets, without a warrant, and did all that, and are claiming that they have ties to Russia. There is a very poignant, and I highlighted it on my Twitter feed if you want to check it out, from one of the leaders of that group, who talked about, yes, they also support Palestinians and the violence and terrorism that they're, experiencing, and they're against colonialism, and their group is, and they shouldn't be vilified for that. They also support Russia, and it's wanting to protect its borders away from NATO and America, that's fighting this proxy war and spending billions of dollars to harm, Ukraine itself, actually, and using it like a battering ram against Russia. So check that out. So tomorrow, Politics of Survival, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. And then next weekend, if you can make it to Chicago, come to the Hyatt at 1. Or, I'm sure that there'll be ways virtually to attend or to check it out. And also check out Caleb Maupin's work and Center of Political Innovation. And, throw them some change if you can, please, because they need it. And it costs a lot to get conferences going on, especially with airline the way it is. So let me put on my glasses. Every once in a while I have to put on reading glasses and see what we have. I'm getting some highs, and I really appreciate that. Miguel is there. Thank you, Miguel. Thank you, Brandy. I really appreciate you being here. You know, I wanted to also talk about a couple of journalists that I recently interviewed that are on boots on the ground in Ukraine, in the Donbas region, and I'm so worried about them. And they are doing such hard work. And Ava Bartlett just discussed and had video of the pedal mines. Now, we have some people that have been putting false stories up that this was Russia, but this was actually the Ukrainian military that dropped the pedal bombs. And the evidence of that has been revealed. And more and more people are becoming aware that it was Ukrainian military harming civilians. And in fact, Ava told this story that her colleague actually stopped an elderly man who was going to poke one of the pedal bombs that looked like little butterflies, almost like toys. He was going to poke it with his cane. It stopped him because it literally takes off limbs. And she was describing how even some of the way they're planted in the trees and whatnot, a breeze can set one off and it's lethal. So here you have elderly people and children and people walking around, and there's these, and she showed them, if you look at her channel on Telegram and on Twitter, you can see the video of them. They look very benign. They look like almost camouflaged. It's hard to see them. And then when you do, they look like a toy or almost like what they're called, like a butterfly kind of thing or a petal. So of course, it looks fascinating to a child, and there is some graphic images. So be careful if you have those issues. But I don't think, as an American citizen, any of us should look away. We need to see this. We need to see the damage that's being caused. Our government, without our consent, because there was no declaration of war officially against Russia, nothing. Is spending all this money instead of on U.S. citizens, but then what they're spending it on is doing such grave harm. And there's a laundry list of countries, and we're going to be talking more about that tomorrow. And then, of course, next Saturday. But Ava Bartlett has been heavily censored. She's been threatened. She's on a military kill list for Ukraine, which was considered a terrorist website, by the way, by the U.S. State Department. But instead of protecting her or ensuring her safety, the Canadian government, where she has a passport of the US government, has done nothing. In fact, NBC did a smear piece on her. And these are people not sitting in some comfortable couch creating content, or like myself in a comfortable, nice room, not afraid of a bomb, creating content. They are there in the heart of it and dealing with these threats. Wyatt Reed is another great journalist that I featured lately. He was in Spain when I talked to him during the heat wave, and I think he was on his way to Donbass soon. And so please support their work, follow them. Sometimes I see comments, so I want to clarify something. Some people say, thank you for your journalism. I'm not a journalist. I'm a content creator. I'm a writer. I did author a book. I'm working on another, but my work can't be comparable to people who have been trained and who are boots on the ground and doing the actual work and risking their life and freedom. Also, I wanted to give a shout out to Indy and Reef and thank them for all their support and help and being flexible, because like tomorrow we have to do, because there's European time and GMT time zone, we're going to have to do it in the afternoon for them instead of the evening. They've been so wonderful. And so please watch their show later on at 7:00 Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, because they do great work and they lift up stories that might pass you by. Some of them are about labor unions like Amazon. Some of them are about like the one they're going to highlight tonight, like Alan McLeod's story about CIA infiltrating Google. But it's really important. And check out Garland Nixon, like I said, his work regarding the recent FBI raid. Because you know what? We were talking about this, the FBI raids, that have been going on against the right. Well, now they're going to the left, and people were warned like this was going to happen. They're going after activists that will not, parrot the propaganda that they want us to parrot. So they're not just going after free speech. They're trying to go after our very thoughts. They're trying to control what we think and how we express it. And that's got to stop. And the only way that stops is if we continue to speak up and continue to figure out the electoral process, which right now is very, very challenging to get fair. When you see public servants becoming multimillionaires in office, there's something wrong. There are people in Congress that were there when I was in my 20s in 1993, and they're still there. That's ridiculous. And they're wealthy and getting wealthier and wealthier, like Nancy Pelosi. And speaking of which, I know that she's gone east. There's been some flip-flopping if she's going to Taiwan or not. She's putting us on the brink of, and basically ruining decades of diplomacy by violating the one China policy and going to Taiwan when they expressly said that's a red line. And hopefully we will avert military confrontation and egos. And I'm talking about Washington, D.C. egos like Anthony Blinken and Jake Sullivan and Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden and that administration. They need to take a step back and not risk American lives for their egos and their agendas that we don't want to be part of. And think about what a distraction that is right now from the fact that we still have high fuel prices. We still have a 41-year inflation on all the prices. I just went to get gas. It was almost still $6 a gallon. They say it's going down. I think it went down 15 cents. I'm in the Pacific Northwest. So if you're in the chat, go ahead and post, what you are experiencing. And here, let me read a couple of the comments here. Lucky Burrito, thank you. Happy birthday, Lucky Burrito. It's your birthday. Happy birthday. And I saw that your mom gave your bird some fruit. So happy birthday to you. I wanted to say that. And thank you gosh, you're spending it with me. That's amazing. I wish I had something like fun. As a matter of fact, since I'm here live and we're talking, I'm going to send you my book for your birthday. So go ahead in the DMs. My DMs are open. Send me your address if you're comfortable, or PO box, and I will send you a book. And they're trying to reshape humanity. That's what Monotalk's saying. And then Brandy said, I watched him earlier discussing this. Oh, I think she's referring to Garland. And, anyway, I just wanted to say thank you because you guys are all so wonderful to come in. This was kind of a last minute thing. I'm trying my wings at trying to do live broadcasts. And one of the things I want to learn how to do is be able to go to my my computer and be able to show you some articles and things that are going on. But please do support investigative journalists, real ones, and ones that are not stenographers for the West. And, they've been demonetized. They're threatened with jail. I mean, I guess the biggest case in the whole world right now is Julian Assange, who's in Belmarsh prison, right? And about to be extradited. And that is, I know that his attorney was on a show saying that they're going to try some more appeals because there was an extradition order to the U.S. recently on these espionage charges. And he published the truth, And in fact, the things that he published were republished in Western media. And he's the one that's going to jail. And he exposed war crimes of the empire. And he's being paid back for his service to humanity by being jailed and slowly, publicly tortured and put to death. And that's what it amounts to. It's horrendous. And what's really striking, while I'm on that note, I had voted for Obama. I'll say that, full disclosure. I was, as I had worked in the past for Democrats, and even after what happened to me, had stayed, with that, because the mindset was, my values was there, and then seeing more and more imperialism over the years, and then the horrendous things Obama did. Well, Obama was responsible for expanding off of what Bush did on the Espionage Act and criminalizing. Basically, it's criminalizing free speech because you can't defend yourself, or these whistleblowers can't defend themselves. They can't say what they're doing. And Julian Assange, and Misty makes a good point, Misty Whiston does, about this. He's not just a he's a publisher. He's a journalist. He was lifting up the whistleblowers. So there's a distinction there. And of course, we've seen the whistleblowers, like Daniel Hale, Edward Snowden be vilified as well. And Edward Snowden can't come to the United States with any hope of a fair trial. And Daniel Hale is in prison because he brought forward the fact that actually drones, 90% of the targets or civilians were not intended targets. And that piece of information that was made public caused quite a ripple effect and also landed him in prison, even though he did that as a public service to tell us, hey, look, this is what's happening. So I don't know, we have to keep speaking up for these whistleblowers, these investigative journalists. We can't allow them to be demonetized, deplatformed, support their work. And, recently we saw a swath of, I think even Wyatt Reed was talking about being demonetized. Brian McDonald, who was on my show back in February, he was sanctioned, which means that he can't even leave, like he can't travel freely in Europe. So it's not just like sanctions on your bank account, but like he can't travel freely because he worked at RT. So this is, and so the British government did that. It's absurd. So we're living in a time that's extraordinary, and it's extraordinary chance for all of us to really get our voices heard and to push back on this fascism, on authoritarianism, and tell our governments, no, we don't want 57 billion, I think, combined between US and NATO to go to fund this proxy war against Russia, using Ukraine as a battering ram to try to weaken Russia. And by the way, it didn't work, did it? The ruble is one of the highest currencies. Russia is fine. And in fact, with the surplus that they just got, and this is very telling, listen to this. President Putin, the Russian Federation president, increased benefits for people, his population. He increased benefits on their pensions and also in other areas to make life easier for them, because of, they're dealing with maybe higher prices as well, but they're working through it. And our government, what does it do? It raises prices for everyone. And it doesn't help the working class. So if someone starts criticizing, President Putin, just remember, he's protecting his borders and he's also protecting his people. What is our government? What is the United States government doing for you? What is the British government doing for you? What is all of them? France, all of the NATO countries, what are they doing for their citizens in comparison? So before we go making judgments on other countries, let's clean house. And one of the ways we're going to clean house is coming up, right? The midterms are coming. And that probably led Nancy Pelosi to make this big, grandiose visit that's causing all these waves regarding Taiwan, right? Because what it's doing is, because, the Republicans have such this thing about China, right? It's trying to unite the Republicans and the Democrats, like unite around this one issue. She's being threatened. She should go where she wants. No, actually, no, it's called being respectful. It's called decades of diplomacy. It's called respecting other sovereign nations and not putting your population at risk by poking them, poking the bear, poking the dragon. What is the purpose of that? What is the purpose of that? What is the purpose of antagonizing China, antagonizing Russia, and trying to get a military response? What is it? Well, it means that we have to do a military response. And whose pocket does that line? Of course, the weapons manufacturers and these politicians that are their puppets. Anyway, it's all of this we're going to talk about tomorrow and next week. And I appreciate your time. And I hope that you had a good weekend and did other things. I know that sometimes the news cycle is relentless, and it can be daunting, right? Especially like that FBI raid, that I saw was so sad. And it's so like, there's so many other things happening right now that people really need help. We don't need a police state. We don't need to be silenced. We just want healthcare. We want education. We want access to housing. We want peace. And what do Russian people want? They want peace and prosperity, just like us. So does China. So do all the other nations. Imagine if we could get our politicians on board with cooperating. Imagine if we could somehow take away the incentive and the monetary incentive to war. I don't have all the answers on that, but that's a good place to start. Because as long as it's incentive, as long as capitalism and makes it an incentive to have war, to manufacture these weapons, these are endless wars, right? Julian Assange said something wise. They are not going to end the war. This is endless war, right? Here we are. So on that note, please try and have a good evening. Check out Indy's stream and get all the lowdown from the week's news. And I'll see you tomorrow. There you have it. Bye.